Kevin, when do I know we're on? We're on?
You're on.
We're on, okay, thank you. I'd like to call the Westfield, Washington Township Advisory Plan Commission to order for Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. Pam, would you please call the roll and note the presence of a quorum?
Ms. Berkman?
Here.
Mr. Deck?
Here.
Mr. Horkay?
Here virtually.
Mr. Johns?
Here.
Dr. Kelleher?
Here.
Mr. Maui?
Here.
Mr. McCarty?
Here.
Mr. Schmitz?
Here.
Ms. Boljaric? We have a quorum.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from February 7th, 2022. Does anyone have any additions, corrections? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the February 7th, 2022 APC minutes.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Maui and a second by Ms. Berkman to approve the minutes. Can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Berkman?
Yes.
Mr. Deck?
Yes.
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Pam, would you please review the rules and procedures for this evening's meeting?
Due to the COVID-19 emergency as declared by the Governor of Indiana, the format and conduct of the meeting has been modified to comply with executive orders regarding the conduct of public meetings, public hearings, and public gatherings. Relevant portions of the Indiana Open Door Law have been amended or suspended during the pendency of the emergency. For our items which do require a public hearing, the meeting will have the following structure. The department will summarize the petition, then the petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present to the Plan Commission. The president will open a public hearing. Individuals will be given 3 minutes to speak. Those representing a group will be given 5 minutes to speak. Only one member per group will be given the 5 minutes to speak. For efficiency purposes, we ask that those representing a group please speak first. The public hearing will be closed when all interested members of the audience have had a chance to be heard, and all emails received during the meeting have been provided to Plan Commission members. The petitioner will then have a chance to respond to comments. The Plan Commission will follow with any comments, questions, or concerns regarding the petition. Our non-public hearing items will have the following structure. The department will summarize the petition and highlight any changes or modifications since the item was last before the Plan Commission. The department will also describe what action, if any, is necessary to be taken. The petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present any changes, and the Plan Commission will then act upon the petition. For our general rules of conduct, we ask that you please not disrupt the proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private discussion, we ask that you please quietly exit the room. Please silence your devices at this time, and again, if you must answer them, please quietly exit the room. If you are attending in person and wish to speak in regards to a petition scheduled for a public hearing, please fill out a yellow card, which are available back by the door as well as up front, and hold on to it until the presentation of that petition. Once the public hearing is open, we will ask those who wish to speak to line up along the west wall and turn in their yellow cards as they approach the podium. Again, we ask that those representing a group come up to speak first. During your comments, please state your name and address into the microphone for the record, and we ask that you not repeat previously stated comments. Your presentation will be timed, and you will be advised when there is approximately 30 seconds remaining. If you are not attending in person and you wish to provide some public comments, they should be emailed to planners@westfield.in.gov with the petition name or number included in the subject line. Those comments will be forwarded to Plan Commission members and the petitioner. We would like to remind everyone to please speak directly into the microphone so that your comments can be put onto the record. Also, please mute your microphone when not speaking. If you come to the podium to speak, please ensure that the microphone is on as indicated by the green light on the base. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. First item on the agenda are consent agenda items, Grist Mill Shops and Ditch Road Fire Station. Do any Plan Commission members have any questions or comments on either of these? Pam, would you like to give a report?
No, thank you.
Okay. If there are no questions or comments, do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Orke seconds.
I have a motion by Victor McCarty and a second by Bob Horke to approve the consent agenda as written with staff's recommendations.
Okay. Ms. Bergman?
Yes.
Mr. Deck?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. First item of business is 2201-PUD-02, Bel Canto PUD. I believe Dane is going to be the staff presenting this.
Yes, thank you, Planning Commission. For the record, virtually, Dane Crabtree with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening is the proposed Bel Canto PUD. Bel Canto proposes a 300-unit multifamily dwelling project consisting of 5 multifamily buildings and a clubhouse east of US Highway 31 and south of and adjacent to David Brown Drive. Property is currently zoned GBPD, General Business Plan Development. This item had its public hearing at the January 18th Plan Commission meeting, where density, non-compliance with the comprehensive plan, architecture, and buffering were the primary concerns. The petitioner has not made revisions since that meeting, but are seeking a recommendation this evening. Jim Schinneber of Nilsson and Frankenberger is present this evening to give a presentation on behalf of the petitioner, after which he will be available for questions. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, Jim Schinneber with the law firm of Nelson and Frankenberger. As Pam is pulling up some of the presentation exhibits, with me tonight on behalf of Bel Canto Asset Growth Fund is Sandy Avery with their development team. As Dane just previously described, we did appear before you previously on January 18th. While there are no changes or modifications to the proposal, we did want to provide a brief summary again. And Bel Canto is seeking your recommendation tonight so they can move forward to the council. The first exhibit on the screen before you outlines the real estate in yellow. It consists of 23 acres adjacent to US 31, also adjacent to David Brown. You'll see just immediately to our west is the Tom Roche car dealership. There's also the Hamilton Square and Valley Farm apartment communities located to our east, both adjacent to us and then further over to the east that you'll see on the aerial. And then south of us is the Woodfield Estates in that location we're pointing. And then as you go further south is where the Lantern Commons PUD project is located that was previously approved by the council. As Dane explained, while the site is zoned GBPD, Bel Canto is seeking a PUD rezone that would have a multifamily component on a larger portion of the real estate, as well as a commercial outlot as well that would be adjacent to David Brown Drive. If you could go to the next exhibit. This next exhibit is the concept plan that we previously shared with you. Just want to point out some items of note. Again, the commercial outlot would be located up in this area. As we previously described to you, Bel Canto has been in discussions, serious discussions with the Lions Club. The Lions Club is looking to relocate to a new facility here in Westfield, so they've been in discussions with Sandy regarding that site. The remainder of the portion, of course, would consist of the multifamily development that Bel Canto is proposing. The road design that you'll see going from north to south is a road design that is contemplated by the thoroughfare plan. So Bel Canto worked in conjunction with the engineering department regarding the right-of-way width, which would be 120 feet. If this development were to move forward, it provides an opportunity to assist in accomplishing that thoroughfare plan goal of creating that roadway that potentially at some point in the future could be further extended to the south to meet with Lantern Commons. Of course, that's not part of our proposal, but we wanted to illustrate that we're taking into account the thoroughfare plan and complying with it. You also see that the way the community has been set out, the buildings that face toward 31 have the fronts, what I would call the fronts, very attractive feature, facing that roadway with parking fields in the back. These buildings that you'll see in the architectural renderings that I'll review in a moment, they're not designed as your typical residential apartment community, understanding what the comp plan calls for. Generally in this area, Bel Canto wanted to design an apartment community that looked more, we could say maybe more corporate in nature, kind of an office look to it, a newer kind of architecture. And so I think they've achieved that result. But with that said, the community would also incorporate other common areas, internal clubhouse facility that has a lot of amenities for residents to use, and many other features that we think would be a benefit to the community. If you could go to the next exhibit, please. You can skip through that one and go to the next one. Thank you. These are the elevations that I was describing. These are views that would be looking from south over to the northeast and the top. And so that's the appearance of the buildings there. And then this would be more of a view as you'd be driving along 31, looking back to the east. Another note that was shared in January 18th is that these apartment units are very specifically designed based on what Bel Canto has experienced in other markets. They're trying to seek a type of demographic, both millennials, empty nesters, various different types of demographics. But what they've learned through the pandemic and even before that was many residents want to have an option of being able to work from their home. And if their home happens to be an apartment, they wanted those types of features. So all these apartment units have what we call a workspace available to them in each unit. It could be in a matter of a den or an office layout. And that's something that they've seen in their other communities that have been very beneficial to the residents that seek out a higher end type of apartment community that has those features. And similar features are available in the clubhouse that would allow people to have small business meetings, Wi-Fi, other types of technological capabilities that they could work from their either apartment unit or work from the clubhouse. If you could go to the next exhibit, please. These are some of the interior photos of the apartment units. I know John shared with you on January 18th, but again, these are high-quality finishes, high-quality amenities for all these different apartment units that would be proposed. You can go to the next slide. We also, I believe John shared this exhibit on the 18th when he appeared before you. This was intended to demonstrate some of the setbacks, especially to our south. Based on where the first buildings would be located in this area, they did a sightline exhibit showing the view, if any, that may be visible to our south in Woodfield Estates. And as the notes indicate, there's about 150-foot setback to the Woodfield Estates subdivision. And the taller buildings, while they would be aligned back here, Bel Canto is trying to be sensitive to these setbacks in this area to create further setback and buffering. If you go to the next exhibit, please. This, again, I won't spend much time on it. John reviewed it on the 18th, but it was the open space and pedestrian circulation plan. And so on those notes that we'd shared previously, it indicates different trails, sidewalks, amenities that would be part of this particular community. Can you go to the next exhibit, please? You can keep going down. Thank you. I'm sorry. Keep scrolling down. These are some images that we shared of how they build out and how they treat their amenities, pool, clubhouse, other recreational facilities and gathering areas. Go down one more, Kevin. Thank you. And these are interior photos of the clubhouse that I previously talked about. Again, very high-end and designed to allow their residents to either work from their unit or walk over to the clubhouse and either enjoy recreation or they could continue to work there. And then, Kevin, if you just go to the last exhibit. Again, this is just the concept plan again. In conclusion, Bel Canto is asking for a favorable recommendation tonight from this Plan Commission back to the council. Bel Canto understands that they are seeking a trade-off from potentially higher intensity commercial and office types of uses for a multi-family residential proposal that does have a commercial component to it. So it, in essence, is a mixed unit or a mixed-use proposal that incorporates a majority of the multifamily proposal and the commercial outlot. Belcanto also believes that the approval can assist in facilitating and advancing that critical segment from the thoroughfare plan by extending the roadway south. And we also feel, and Belcanto feels, that despite it being a multifamily proposal with this commercial component, it is very consistent with the uses and other types of buildings around this area, considering its location. And they feel that it really would be an asset to this community. With that said, we do appreciate your time tonight. We'll remain available to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Turn my microphone on. Thank you, Jim. I'll start at this end of the podium.
Well, this looks like a really nice development, the apartment layouts, amenities and everything. But my concern is its location. I don't remember how I said it last time when you were here. It was something about this doesn't do anything bad for US 31, but doesn't do anything good either. I still feel that way. I was struggling a little bit to give up that more, the higher intensity commercial. And I don't negate, as you say, that there's a commercial element here, but it's kind of the leftover piece. And this really is primarily a multifamily right along 31. And so even leading up to the meeting this evening, I was still struggling with this one, having looked at it numerous times in the last couple of days. And so I was trying to think of other places where I see multifamily along a freeway. And you won't like hearing this, but of course right away comes to mind is Speedway on the west side or Castleton on the northeast side. Then closer to home, Gramercy down Keystone, I consider that, limited access freeway type. It just doesn't activate, a major entrance into Westfield. And so I don't have anything against the way it's laid out or what you're proposing, but I'm not on board with it at this site. So I didn't have a question to formulate, just letting you know where I stand.
I understand.
Thank you. Kristen?
Thank you. I'll just echo what Andre has shared, that it does look like very nice multifamily development, but this is just the wrong area for me as well. I very strongly support the employment corridor along US 31 and getting the extra commercial dollars. So thank you.
Victor McCarty?
I feel like I say this too often, but as the only millennial up here, everything that you mentioned, you're spot on. It's exactly what we're looking for. I mean, this development kind of reminds me of a newer apartment complex in Fishers called Spark. I just had a friend that moved in there. Very similar architecture and design and amenities. But as fellow two commissioners before me said, and I said this at the last meeting, it's the wrong location. We don't have any apartments in Westfield along 31, even though it's right next to in the area. It just doesn't work for me. I think we are in a very tricky time right now. If we do want, or individuals want to work from home, but at the same time, it doesn't activate anything for Westfield in general of commercial business, what we expect in the 31 employment corridor. So, but I appreciate the product, and maybe we could see it somewhere else in Westfield someday. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Mr. Horke next.
Nothing significantly different to add, actually. I agree totally. This is a business corridor. This is not the right place for it. If this was a proposal that we had received for a different piece of property, happy to have it. This is just not the right piece of property, so it needs to find a new home.
Thank you. Mr. Deck?
It's an absolutely beautiful product, and I do echo the sentiments with regards to its location. And if this doesn't fly, I hope you guys are able to find somewhere else that's more fitting within the city.
Dave Schmidt?
I share the, same opinions of what's been said, so.
Mike Johns?
I agree with everything that's been said today. Thank you.
I think we are ready for a recommendation then to the city council.
Parquet will move that we send a negative recommendation for this petition to city council.
I have a motion for a negative recommendation from Mr. Horke. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
The second by Andre Maui. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Deck?
Yes.
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Bergman?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We do appreciate your time tonight and your consideration in reviewing this matter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have 2 public hearing items. And I'd like to state again that if you want to send in comments, it's to planners@westfield.in.gov. And if you would please send those in as we start our public hearing here in the room, then we will have them when we are finished having everyone who chooses to speak before us here. So planners@westfield.in.gov, please. First item for a public hearing is 2202-ODP-02 and 2202-SPP-02, the harbor at Grand Park Village. Dane, I think you're on for this one.
Yes, good evening, Plan Commission. For the record, Dane Crabtree with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening is the overall development plan and primary plat for the harbor at Grand Park Village, a 74-lot paired villa community on 87.08 acres in the Grand Park Village PUD district. Note that while the paired villa community comprises of only 29.95 of the 87 acres, the entire parent parcel is required to go through the overall development and primary plat process, which is, for example, why you will see some things such as the off-site external frontage landscape labeled on the plans with to be installed by others as future lots develop. This item is scheduled for a public hearing this evening. It has been properly noticed and advertised. The department has received no public comments. As the plans are compliant with the standards of the UDO and the Grand Park Village PUD, if neither the APC nor the public have any outstanding concerns, the department recommends approval of 2202 ODP-02 and 2202 SPP-02. Rick Ellis of Y Engineers and Ann Klock of Beazer Development are on the call virtually. They do not plan to make a presentation, but are available if you have questions, and I am available if there are questions of staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Dane. Plan Commission members, any questions or comments? I'll start with, public hearing. I'll open the public hearing at, it looks like 7:20. Do I have any cards, Pam?
We do not, but if anyone would like to speak on this one, we welcome you to come forward and bring your card with you. Thank you.
Anyone who would like to speak? Hearing no one, I'll close the public hearing at 7:21. Now, Plan Commission members, any questions or comments? Nope.
Sure, I'll take us some time. Just one general question for this area. I'm appreciative that with this primary plat, that the lots directly south of the PAC, they do not have any homes on them right now. But just as a general question for the future, do we expect to see residences there or something different?
So per the Grand Park Village PUD, this entire area that you see essentially before you right now, including the blocks, is on the concept plan of the Grand Park Village PUD as multifamily and single family attached.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the other side? Nope. Okay, thank you. Then I think we're ready for a motion. I think staff has recommended that if we had no issues, that we should be able to send a recommendation or make a motion to approve this evening. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the primary plat and overall development plan 2202-SPP-02 and 2202-ODP-02 with the condition that all necessary approvals be obtained from the Westfield Public Works Department and Hamilton County surveyors prior to the issuance of an improvement location permit.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve from Andre Maui. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Mr. Deck.
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Bergman?
Yes.
Mr. Deck?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is 2008 PUD-09, North Point 2 PUD. And I think this one is yours, Pam.
Thank you and good evening. Pam Howard with the Community Development Department. Before you this evening for a public hearing, we have a proposed new PUD district to be known as North Point 2. This 180-acre site is located on the north side of State Road 38 between Anthony Road and Hinkle Road and is currently zoned AGSF1. It is northeast of and adjacent to the existing North Point PUD district. The proposed ordinance accommodates an expansion of the North Point Commercial Park and contains standards that would allow for the proposed uses and expansion of the park. I do have Russell Brown on behalf of the petitioners who is here to present, after which both he and I will be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Good evening. For the record, Russell Brown with the law firm of Clark, Quinn, Moses, Scott & Grahn, 320 North Meridian Street, Suite 1100 in Indianapolis. Also with me is Chris Wilkes from Holiday Properties. And I'll start out and say that we believe the journey to tonight's hearing, from our view, has roots that go back approximately 15 years. In late 2006, the then town of Westfield approved the Aurora development, approving a master planned business park immediately adjacent to 23 residential lots, and over the objection of some neighbors and community members. In 2007, a comprehensive plan was adopted, which remains largely unchanged for the since that adoption 15 years ago. Can we go to the next slide, please? In 2016, a modernizing amendment to Aurora was completed. In 2018, an expansion amendment was approved, adding 114 acres to the property, and now known as North Point, including property immediately adjacent to State Road 38, which under the 2007 comp plan has a designation other than business park. Since that modernizing amendment in 2016, several developments have occurred in the area, including more than 230 lots of new residential development and more than $60 million in commercial development out of the ground today. The momentum of North Point is real. The completion of East Street extension to State Road 38 has led to the development team proposing the zoning amendment before you this evening. Go to the next, actually, I'm sorry, we'll stay there. In several ways, we believe North Point 2 sits in a similar situation to Aurora 16 years ago. The proposed project is a master planned business park seeking to capitalize on the city of Westfield's development reputation and the ease of access to and from a major limited access highway. Its western boundary being located 1 mile from northbound US 31's off-ramp and on-ramp. Just like Aurora, it shares a boundary with some residential lots. Here, 7, ranging in size from 0.6 of an acre to 3 acres in size, containing 5 residential structures. North Point 2 has nearly 3,900 lineal feet along State Road 38, which is more than the combined frontage of North Point 1 on both US 31 and State Road 38. South of the site's boundary with State Road 38 are more than 90 acres of commercially zoned and or utilized properties and 5 residences. To the north, the property has nearly 1 mile of boundary along unimproved agricultural land and shares approximately 2,300 feet of a boundary with Bray Family Homestead Park. In line with the traffic analysis done by the development team, the proposed entries, being 2 of them, are located in ways that would align with existing or proposed commercial development on the south side of 38 to allow for appropriate entry and exit paths for both existing and planned commercial uses. No entries are planned along either Anthony Road or Hinkle Road. We believe these features of these 180 acres, along with the actual and anticipated challenges along the right-of-way and land uses in the State Road 38 and US 31 corridor, will provide for a successful and high-quality development, which has features unparalleled in Westfield, Washington Township. While many of you may be hearing a public presentation regarding this ordinance for the first time this evening, many in this room are not. The project has been under consideration and discussion for quite some time now, nearly 2 years. And the features of the ordinance tonight have many differences and notable differences in the ordinance originally proposed in those initial meetings. While those here in opposition to the petition remain steadfast in their position, we have worked to address concerns raised in the 4 neighborhood meetings held. I'll spend a very brief time talking about those provisions, those modifications before you this evening. As you'll notice in the upper northwest corner, there is a part of, which is immediately adjacent to residential lots proposed to be comprised of a dedicated public park of at least 10 acres in size. The intention of the developer is to find a public park entity to accept the property who would be responsible for programming and development there. The park is intended to not only serve as a buffer for the development, but also to serve as a long-term community asset. Further, through other provisions in the ordinance, there will be required paths dedicated to complete access between Bray Family Homestead Park and this new proposed park area, in which completed would add interconnection between community assets not currently available or contemplated in this area. If we can go to the next slide, please. Area 2 on the site plan that was just on the screen provides an area where the development intends to provide visual screening of the balance of the development from those off-site to the north and west, having requirements for west-facing facades and prohibitions for overhead doors being placed on west, north, and south facades. Area 2 would also provide for access to the dedicated park. There are various other provisions of the ordinance which are applicable to the entire property, including a 100-foot building setback from the boundaries of the PUD district, the use of exterior fencing requirements intended to pay homage to the history of portions of the township, and we've also codified that there would be no direct access to the development to occur from Anthony Road. The ordinance does, in many other parts, build on the success of Aurora and North Point 1, building in the desire to accommodate users of both smaller and larger scale, with the goal of attracting users who have focuses in logistics, technology, and advanced manufacturing, allowing Westfield to attract and retain growing local, national, and international companies. I'd be happy to answer questions regarding the specific contents of the ordinance. I want to move very quickly to the topic which we believe will comprise the majority of the conversation this evening, being the 2007 comp plan. If we could go to the next slide, please. Should be one, there you go. In reviewing the comp plan, there are several names on the document who still play a role in the development in the township tonight, including 3 members of the Plan Commission. So for some of you, this may be a bit of a refresher or a stroll down memory lane. The comp plan was adopted 15 years ago this month. While there have been sub-area plans and modifications, overall, the bulk of the plan remains largely unchanged. Those of us involved in land use as a profession or civic pursuit understand the purpose of a comp plan. It is a guide. On the verge of sounding somewhat sacrilegious, it is not a holy text. It is not a land use constitution. It is not even land use code. It is not, in my opinion, a tool that's intended under Indiana law to alone serve or enforce a moratorium on growth. But it is the subject of much of tonight's debate. Your plan, as you know, provides 6 types of land use, at least 3 of which we believe should be part of tonight's discussion. The first is a highway corridor. You just spent time on a petition discussing highway corridor and what goes in them. If we go to the next slide, please. Interestingly, the text and the land use map have some small differences as it relates to highway corridors. The map doesn't provide any specific quote-unquote highway corridors. It provides some other types of corridors, but it does not specifically designate highway corridors. But the text specifically calls out 3 highways through the community as areas which have, and I'll quote, enormous impact on the community's appearance, economic vitality, and convenience. Later, that same text goes on to provide in these areas residential and retail development should be limited in areas which are designated as a village or downtown area. There are no such designations along State Road 38. As such, a reasonable conclusion could be drawn from the text that those areas along highway corridors, specifically State Road 38, 32, and US Highway 31, not located in villages, should not have any residential development. And as such, we believe a reasonable conclusion is that there is no residential development contemplated along State Road 38 in this area of the community, contrary to what the steadfast advocation of many people have been when reading this comp plan. The next slide, please. The next land use type also included is the concept of a business park. The designation contains a variety of areas which in 2007 contained those uses or had underlying zoning for these uses. While that land use designation may not be present on the subject property, we do believe that the comp plan's vision of how business parks were to be developed could serve and does serve as a useful guide to tonight's request. The text provides that business parks should be developed as a campus-like setting, providing interconnectedness, located near highways, limiting access to thoroughfares, and other design features which we believe the North Point 2 ordinance adheres to in spirit and implementation. The text also encourages areas removed from residential neighborhoods. As I provided in my opening overview, we believe this location does that. It is, we can go to the next slide, please. It is adjacent to only 1/3 of the number of residential lots as North Point 1, and in fact prohibits direct access to and through residential neighborhoods as to access the development. There are a large number of letters from those who access their property off of Hinkle Road located here. That is, as the crow flies, separated by at least 1/4 of a mile from the boundaries of North Point 2. So while we believe that the textual provisions of the business park design guidelines can be met and are met from the proposed development here. The next slide, please. The final text of the comp plan, which we believe is relevant to tonight's discussion, is the text of the northeast rural residential section of the township. The future land use map and text provide 3 different areas of rural residential categories, each with different growth expectations and reevaluation expectations. The southwest portion of the township specifically provides text that indicates the growth area there will be non-existent or low because the area was largely built out in 2007. There's no concept of expected reevaluation. That is not the case in the northeast, which is what is before you this evening, where the terms like near future are used. There's a specific reevaluation period and an expectation that the town should, quote, monitor development patterns and reevaluate the development policies as the community grows and changes. It is unquestioned that Westfield, Washington Township has changed in the last 15 years. It used to take me 50 minutes to get from downtown to this building. Tonight it took me 30. That's a huge change to the development patterns in your community. It is, there's some argument that this region and the development patterns here have changed in the last 15 months. It is the development team's position that this Plan Commission and the City Council, just like the Plan Commission and Town Council did in 2006, have a need to look at the long-term vision of the community and to make policy and zoning decisions which reflect the recent growth and projected growth opportunities available to it. I understand that there are some in this room who in 2007 or just last week looked at the 2007 comp plan designation for this area and viewed State Road 38 as the 38th parallel between growth and no growth. Unfortunately, I believe that is not an accurate reading of the text of the land use designations as a whole within the existing comp plan. Go to the last slide, please. On this screen is perspective of what those heading eastbound on State Road 38 could expect to see as they head in the area we're referring to as North Point 2. We believe the proposal before you tonight is a responsible proposal, which allows for the ongoing and orderly development of Westfield, Washington Township. The proposal allows the community to realize the locational advantage presented by the continued work of the state of Indiana on US 31, while doing so in a responsible and respectful manner. We know that you have received significant correspondence on this matter. I appreciate Pam's diligence in forwarding it to us, so we had an opportunity to review as well. And we do anticipate a number of speakers during the public hearing. Both Mr. Wilkes and I are available to answer questions now or later, but we would anticipate having some responsive and conclusory remarks following the public hearing. With that, I'm happy to answer questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We'll open the public hearing, after which time we'll allow Plan Commission members to ask questions and make comments. Open the public hearing at, it looks like 7:40.
Okay, we ask now that those representing a group come up and line up to speak.
Okay. And again, if there's anyone out there listening virtually and you want to send a comment, please send it to planners@westfield.in.gov. We will not delay, have time after the public hearing or at the end of the public hearing to wait for you. There will be plenty of time during the public hearing, so please get your comments in while we're discussing this.
There you go. Okay. Good evening. My name is James Hogan, and I am a resident of Hinkle Creek Estates. And I think I would like to start with this. This question comes to me every time I think about this, which is, why must the petitioners make crooked the straight path to our well-being? That is the key question here. What I'm going to do is walk you through what Indiana code allows. It's what all of us residents abide by. Russell mentioned the comprehensive plan. We certainly have honored that as residents in this area. And we expect that any petitioner would honor that as well. There are 5 elements to the Indiana Code 3674603. We don't think that the petitioners paid reasonable regard to any of these. The first one is they shall pay reasonable regard to the comprehensive plan. I don't know if you can pull that image up, or maybe the remonstration package. There is a figure in there, which is the comprehensive plan figure. And when you look at that figure, what you'll see are 2 different things. So Russell had mentioned the North Point momentum is real. And I can tell you without a doubt, those against North Point, that momentum is just as real. That's the figure. That figure right there shows where North Point 1 is located. We have no problem with where that's located. We feel that that paid reasonable regard to the comprehensive plan. That's in green. We also believe there's a hard stop at 38. North Point 2 goes to the north side of 38, and it's very clear that that is the Northeast Rural Residential District, reserved for rural residential development, or, as it might be, agricultural. Second, they shall pay reasonable regard to the current conditions and the character of current structures and uses in the Northeast Rural Residential District. Think Bastion Solutions and Abbott Labs. That's what would be juxtaposed against so many residents here. We would be looking at it from our vantage point. It does not fit. It is a square peg in a round hole. Some of those amenities, some of those modifications that they mention, the park and the fence, to me, those are lipstick on a pig. If you stand on the west side of US 31, those buildings are so very clear, and that's fine. But that's what we would be seeing here. It's really not that different.
Excuse me,
Mhm.
Kevin, is somebody watching the clock?
minute 20.
Are we close? I just wanted to announce that. Okay.
Shall pay reasonable regard to the most desirable use for which the land in each district is adapted. They're polar opposites. Residential, industrial. They're just polar opposites. They're not even close. Shall pay reasonable regard to the conservation of property values throughout the jurisdiction. We've had realtors talk about the potential stigma that this would cause all the residents in the area. We have numbers that just a sampling of the 55 homes would drop the values collectively, cumulatively, by $9 million. It's real money. Lastly, shall pay reasonable regard to the responsible development and growth. We just don't feel like that's happening here. And so we ask the APC to reject on these grounds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan.
Okay, I do have a group of cards now for individuals, but first, does anyone else want to speak representing a group? Okay, then we'll go through this group of cards, and when we get close to the end, we'll ask anyone else who wants to speak to line up. First, I have Christy Wheeler.
Christy Wheeler, and I'm blessed to live at 20889 Anthony Road. And I really appreciate the opportunity to address the APC this evening. I've never done anything like this before. I would like to briefly share why the proposal for the North Point 2 Industrial Park does not work in the Northeast rural residential area. It doesn't work because it's opposite of the Westfield Comprehensive Plan. Now, Mr. Brown would have you believe that the area may be considered, I don't know, I might get the words wrong, business park or a corridor of some sort, but that's just actually not correct. When you look at the Westfield Comprehensive Plan, it is clearly outlined on the maps and in the verbiage as the Northeast rural residential area. There's no ambiguity about that. And I quote, "If the land converts from agricultural uses, it is encouraged to develop in the form of rural or conservation subdivisions with substantial open space." So the people who did the plan did look toward the future and did contemplate what development might look like. It does not work because it's incongruent with the 2020 Hamilton County Comprehensive Plan. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that, but the public input surveys for this plan, which had respondents from all townships in the county, showed a clear theme: maintain what is left of our rural undeveloped areas. There are lots of quotes and themes in that document with that thought. It doesn't work because it devalues our properties. As James already mentioned, a figure of just 55 homes could potentially lose $9 million. Those are for real families, real citizens of this area. It doesn't work because there's other land available. If the city of Westfield, and not a developer, decides that there's a need for another industrial park, there is land that's available, which is already appropriately zoned for this type of development. As you can see from the map that's in our remonstrance package, with all those blue dots being that other land that's available. It doesn't work because it sets a precedent. Once something like this is anchored on the north side of 38, it paves the way for industrial creep into the rest of the area. And it doesn't work because nothing like this was ever contemplated for this area. And it doesn't work because it negatively impacts our quality of life. Air pollution, noise pollution, light pollution, increased traffic, increased crime. This would change our environment, it would change our health and our safety 180 degrees from what it is today. And I'm out of time, so I will just say, please do not allow the petitioner to impose this absurd industrial park where it was never envisioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry,
Brad-
I'm smiling because I just happened to turn my computer off in the middle of things, so it's gonna get me back online.
Brad Canada.
Hi there. My name is Brad Canada. I live at 20945 Anthony Road. I just first want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My wife and I purchased our 16-acre dream property about 5 years ago, and I can tell you that we'll live there forever, raising our 3 young kids, and continue to play a very, very active role in this community at our kids' schools and with sports and activities. Simply put, this area between 38, 31, and Hinkle and Anthony is a very special place in Westfield, if not in all of Hamilton County, arguably if not in all of central Indiana. It's a very, very special place. Before I begin, I want to clarify and clearly state my position. Under no circumstances, no adjustments, no revisions, no enhancements will I ever support this land variance or ever feel even slightly okay with this decision. To say that this room full of neighbors and concerned residents would be disappointed is an understatement. We would be devastated. The approval of this will drastically change every aspect of our lives in this area: traffic, commuters, semis, stoplights, noise, cutting down mature trees, and taking away the natural and coveted feel and look, turning this into a massive industrial park with a lot of uncertainty for us on what happens next. We're not talking about building a corner McDonald's. We're talking about 170 acres of destruction. Selfishly, my life savings and the investment that I made would be crushed. And most importantly, if it's approved, this community loses a very special place and a unique area forever, and there's no turning back once it happens. My simple ask: do not approve this. I stare south of 38 daily, and there's tons of vacant land to develop. I don't know the hard data, but there's hundreds of acres of land in Westfield that are not developed, that have strategically and thoughtfully been zoned industrial commercial, and this community plans out future growth. I'm absolutely pro-growth. I'm pro-business. I would fully support the industrial and commercial expansion in literally every single acre that's zoned for it right now. On the outside looking in, this scenario is very simple. There's a well-known developer that owns a massive chunk of land, has financial upside for himself, his partners, and even some silent partners. But at the end of the day, they are seeking approval against the city plan solely based on the ownership and the opportunity that sits in front of him today. This isn't because we have maxed out industrial zone land. It's not because we are out of space. It's not because this is the perfect spot for it. It's solely because there is a quick and easy opportunity based on the scenario at hand. You all have very hard jobs as members because you have to balance every decision with the well-being of the residents, the growth of the community, and making the right decisions for future generations. We are not being greedy. We are not being unreasonable. We are not asking for the moon, and we are not trying to stretch the law and regulations for selfish intentions. We as residents are simply asking you all to abide by the plan and keep this area zoned as is. Build and develop whatever the plan says, and build and develop every acre of it. We are directly and askingly humble for us to represent us and the concerned residents, and this would be devastated if this was approved. Please keep this area unique, protected, and beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Martin Kirkwood.
Hello, I'm Martin Kirkwood. I live at 21570 Anthony Road and have since 2004. I've written 2 letters to your committee and hope that you had a chance to read those and take into consideration the comments that I shared there. Tonight, rather than trying to offer you more reasons to object this plan, which is clearly inappropriate for this area, I would like to offer you a solution. I also happen to serve on the Westfield, Washington Township Parks Advisory Council and have for over 10 years, trying to serve our community to help us protect and preserve and acquire additional green space for our community. And in that role, I was part of the group that put forward the proposal with this landowner to convert this space to park development. Unfortunately, due to some other circumstances beyond my control, there were a number of individuals that opposed that and turned down the bond that we had approved to purchase this land and additional land up in that area. So I would like to offer a request of your council and of the city to try and help us come back to a plan that would include that area into a park space. As was outlined in our plan, it is clear that land acquisition and preservation is a priority of our community. In addition to that, the Indiana Statewide Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan identifies critical counties in Indiana that are underserved for this type of space, and Hamilton County is one of 7 of our 92 counties that is identified as being lacking in the proper green space for our residents. So this would be an ideal space to help us offset some of that deficit. And finally, the Hamilton County Parks and Recreation Department has recently put out a plan where they've identified one of their high priorities to acquire additional green space. And in this plan, the recreation needs identify a couple of items that would be a perfect alignment with this property and an additional source that we should seek to help us preserve this space. One of those seen purchased land for 2 large parks north of State Road 32. These parcels should exceed 100 acres and preferably 250 acres, which this property is near that. And under the land acquisition policy of the Hamilton County Parks, the following are policy statements. Parcels should exceed 100 acres and the land should have park-like qualities. 2, develop passive parks. 3, consider the purchase of unique, historic, and contingent properties. So I would offer you this is the perfect property and area to help us make that happen, both for our state, for our county, for our township, and for our city to work together to come up with a solution. I think you have a room full of individuals that would be more than happy to help make that happen. And I know we have a number of our members of our councils and other entities that also are interested in helping move this forward. So I plead to you to please reject this proposal and help us find a way to preserve this space as was intended by the Westfield Washington Township Parks Council. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Janet Quisenberry May.
Good evening. My name is Janet Quisenberry May. I have some land on Anthony Road, 20776. I want to thank the members of the APC for having us tonight, and Pam Howard. You've probably received many letters from me over the last year and a half. I humbly ask you to vote no on North Point 2 PUD. Over 600 people over the last year ago, and it's in our remonstrance package, signed a door-to-door petition and a digital petition opposing this industrial park. This 183 acres is zoned rural residential, as is stated in the Westfield, Washington Township Comprehensive Plan on pages 31 and 32. This plan is valid today. It's a living plan, and it's very clear what this should be. The investors, led by Holiday Properties, purchased these 183 acres, knowing they were zoned rural residential. The Department of Natural Resources and Hamilton County Parks Department have had a declaration in the Reporter that there is an alarming scarcity of green space left in Hamilton County. Therefore, these 183 acres are a blessing and a treasure of green space. The surrounding area is filled with farmlands, fields of grain, barns, large trees, wildlife, streams, parks, birds, animal farms, and a one-of-a-kind tree tunnel on Anthony Road. And equally important, it's lined with tax-paying residents who care. This area also has a rich history, pardon me, of our Native Americans and the Underground Railroad. This rural area is a gift to Westfield. You might consider driving up there if you haven't, around Anthony Road and 216th Street, down Hinkle, around 38. Stop by McGregor Park. Stop at Bray Family Park. If you go there at night, get out of your car and look at the sky, the night sky. You can see the stars sparkling in the sky. Clear, crisp nights. It's beautiful. Please honor and protect this rural residential area and value the citizens who are already there. Protect what we have, an area to share with everyone in Westfield, Hamilton County, and surrounding areas. I pray that you vote no on this PUD. It is not responsible growth. It's intentional devastation to the citizens of this rural residential area. It does not fit here. God created the earth. Please protect this land for our citizens and future generations. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you.
Okay, Adam Coria, or Coriza? Sorry.
All right, well, thanks for letting us speak tonight. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Courier, and I live at 21247 Anthony Road with my wife and 3 sons. A few weeks back, I attended the neighborhood meeting with the developer and their attorney to listen and learn. I came away from that meeting with a clear understanding of what was being proposed, and I listened to all of my neighbors' objections. As far as I know, there still isn't any of our neighbors in the area that support North Point 2. I grew up in Pike Township in the 70s and 80s, so I saw firsthand what exploding growth looks like in a rural setting. And as a realtor since 2011, I've worked in just about every community in central Indiana. And while I do find it curious that every once rural area seems to have an insatiable appetite for growth, I'm generally not against it either. But what I am against is irresponsible growth, and that's what I think North Point 2 would be, as this would not be the highest and best use of the land. In my own experience, none of my buyers I've ever worked with have ever said, "Hey Adam, we want to be sure that our dream home is within walking distance of a trucking company." But if that's not possible, then we'll settle for being close to a structural steel fabricating operation. And none of my seller clients have said to me, "Hey, on our listing, be sure you include a couple of photos of the food processing plant behind our house. And also, the new warehouse next to it that we love because it is 45 feet tall, include a picture of that." You may be thinking to yourselves, well, there just aren't that many houses around this proposed industrial park that would be affected. But given the size and height of it, I can 100% guarantee you that the 24 or so homes that would actually have views of North Point 2 will most certainly be affected. There's only downside for residential homes when next to an industrial park. Looking down the road a few years, we'll have every kind of pollution that nobody likes and a vastly increased traffic situation which will spill over to all of the surrounding roads off of 38 as out-of-town commuters speed past our homes to and from their jobs at North Point 2. Some will drive respectfully and carefully on our hilly rural roads, but many will dangerously not. My expectation is that the future for the area will become commercial creep from Anthony Road to 216th and all the way to Hinkle, because in fairness to the proud current owners of those lands who may eventually decide to sell, who could blame them when no other kind of real estate will want to be next to North Point 2 other than the likes of North Point 3, 4, and 5. Thanks for your time and consideration on behalf of your concerned fellow citizens.
Thank you.
Kathy Pike.
My name is Kathy Pike, and we live and have lived for the last 20 years at 5458 Sheridan Road. We moved here from South Carolina and have loved it and have loved being here. My husband went to every house in the 1 square mile around where North Point 2 would be. There was not one person who was in favor of that development, not one. And he went not just one time, 2 and 3 times to talk to people to see what their views were. So I just want you to understand that. This is not responsible development. And it's just really sad to see this happening.
Thank you.
Jill Bracken Emerson.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jill Bracken Emerson. I live with my family at 20803 Anthony Road. We purchased 7 acres on Anthony Road in 2020, and We did that because we wanted to develop a small family farm. I had grown up on a farm, and I wanted to come back to Hamilton County and continue that with my family. We moved from Carmel because we couldn't have a farm in Carmel. Westfield has given us that. Since we moved, we have developed the farm. We've installed fencing, upgraded a barn, upgraded the drainage system, and renovated the house. We've purchased cattle, we've purchased farm equipment, and we've started our farm and sold our first livestock last fall to some local 4-H'ers. The financial investment that we have made as a family on this particular piece of property is 25 years worth of work as a lawyer. My husband and I both are practicing attorneys. And this is our nest egg, and our property values and our financial future as a family is tied to this piece of property and what we've tried to develop here. When we purchased, we checked our zoning. We found that it was rural. We checked the comprehensive plan. We found that it was rural agricultural, and we purchased. We did our homework. We relied on the comprehensive plan and the zoning that this community has developed. Contrary to that, it is my understanding that the owners at North Point purchased their land knowing the zoning was rural residential, and purchased that property wanting to put a particular development there that doesn't belong. This area is rural residential, and the development of industrial buildings just doesn't belong there. Please send a negative recommendation to the county council or the city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Joe Adams.
Good evening. My name is Joe Adams. I live at 5059 East 211th Street, which is less than half a mile from the border property of North Point 2. My property reaches all the way to Morse Reservoir, which it doesn't show it on the map there, but it's just off the map. The North Point 2 fields are actually, my property has over 1,400 feet of shoreline on Morse Reservoir. The North Point 2 fields have drainage tiles and surface water drainage that flows directly into my property and then through my property to Morse Reservoir. I know this because in 1997, a large diesel fuel spill in these same fields that we're talking about caused a major ecological damage to my property. One of the creeks that runs through my property and into Morse sustained significant damage. We had 100% fish kill of all species. We had as much as 90% of the frogs, toads, salamanders, and other amphibians that died as a result of the spill. We got the DNR involved, the state of Indiana, the county, and multiple other agencies. And I've worked more than 20 years to repair that ecological damage. If an industrial park were to be built on North Point 2 land, not only would industrial pollution rise and threaten groundwater for miles around, but given enough time, we would most likely face another industrial accident that would eventually flow into my property and others that are here tonight and on into Morse Reservoir. Depending on the toxicity of the spill, this could not only wipe out wildlife and domestic animals, but in the end, it could threaten the water supply of everyone that uses Morse Reservoir. And this doesn't even take into account the groundwater usage by a large industrial park, which could threaten all of us that live around the area and are dependent on the aquifer for our water. And where would the wastewater go, and how would it be treated? Frankly, there's just too many questions and not enough good answers here. It's also very clear that the decision to have industrial parks below State Road 38 has already been made, and there is no reason that North Point 2 couldn't build south of State Road 38 and away from the Morse Reservoir and the Morse watershed. With parkland becoming increasingly precious and irreplaceable, we simply can't put an industrial park on either side of two of our current parks, potentially one of many future parks that could exist in one of the few remaining corridors of undeveloped open space. After all, a nature park with no or very limited wildlife isn't a park at all. A nature park tends to draw people from both inside and outside the county, as we've seen with Grand Park. And in my experience, industrial parks are to be avoided because of truck traffic, pollution, and for many other reasons. For these and many other reasons already stated, I implore the planners, commissioners, and council members to vote no on the North Point 2 request for a change of land use. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim Armstrong.
Good evening. My name is Tim Armstrong. I live at 20636 Anthony Road. I'm one of the third. Mr. Brown's indicated that would be directly impacted by this. It's right in my backyard. I've already sent an email, so I will keep this brief. I wanted to point out verbiage in the comprehensive plan, and actually Mr. Brown already had it up here. So there's no need for me to recite the entire thing. It was talking about foreseeable future, in particular the development for these areas as anything other than rural or agricultural uses in the near future would violate policy, it's a pretty strong word, set out in the general policies. The next paragraph indicated when this plan is updated. It's not been updated yet. So with that being said, I wanted to point out that as far as I'm concerned, this plan is used to drive development. Development is not to drive the plan. And also I wanted to point out the comprehensive plan as a direct quote out of, what is it called here? Oh, Mondays with the Mayor, episode 3. The mayor refers to this comprehensive plan as, and I quote, the Bible for our entire development, end quote. One thing I wanted to actually basically leave you with here, I wanted to recite a message from the mayor on the welcome page for Welcome Westfield. One thing that remains is our commitment to caring. We have great amenities and big plans for the future, but they mean nothing without that sense of care that I'm proud to say we have here in Westfield. So in closing, please consider those words that we go by. Please show that you truly care for the residents of Westfield. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Justin Evans.
Good evening. My name is Justin Evans. Live at 5376 Sheridan Road. If there's anybody in this room that's most impacted by this proposal, I'm the guy. I'm the guy that has 3 acres that are on the edge of this development and this build. Me and my family. We purchased this back in 2019. We moved out of Castleton, moved up to Noblesville, left Noblesville because it was becoming too constrained, and decided to get out to some space here in Westfield. I'm thankful to be a part of this neighborhood, this community. I'm thankful for how you guys have helped develop it to where we are today. But when we bought this land, we saw the comprehensive plan as a contract. And so we signed our contract by purchasing our house there as well, and wanted to invest our money and our time and our energy in this house. And I can tell you, since this has started to where we sit today, I'm thankful for all these people that have helped fight against this, because livelihoods have been impacted, families have been impacted. I've chosen not to invest certain money into my home today because I don't know how this is going to turn out. And that home houses 2 foster kids. One foster kid who we're adopting tomorrow. And when I bought this house, we called this house our little piece of heaven, because we saw the potential for what this property could be. And I kid you not, her name is Heaven. And she's going to be our daughter tomorrow. And I'm excited to have a future in this home. But if this gets approved, I promise you, we'll be putting our house up for sale, and we will be moving into a community that we can raise our family and not have to deal with these massive buildings, trucks coming in and out, and not a safe place for my family to reside. This impacts families. I work for a manufacturing company. They wouldn't want to put this here. With all of this rumbling, they wouldn't want it here. I'm proud to be a part of this neighborhood. I'm proud for the people that sit back here, and I'm proud to be part of Westfield. I want to maintain that way as well. Thank you for your time.
Wayne Wheeler.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing public input. I want to take just a quick second and back everybody up about where this project has come from. We were notified in August of 2020 about this, and I can tell you that every waking moment since August 2020, every single Thursday morning, we check to see what Pam's put out on the schedule. Every Tuesday or Monday before the meeting comes up, you know what we do? We check to see if it's been pulled off the schedule. Our life has been disrupted, and not just ours, but all these people sitting behind me. For over 2 years, it's been disrupted. And people choose whether to go on vacation or what to do because they don't know when this thing's going to come up. And it's been continued for over a year, which is absolutely absurd that all of us as residents have to live with the anxiety of the continuance of this project. I would ask everyone that there is a swift decision and we stop the continuance process. It's just a burden that hangs over our head for the last 2 years and is going to continue. So I would implore you to make a swift decision on this and not keep kicking this can down the road. And all of us have to live with it every day. So in the petitioner's opening narrative, they would like you to believe that there's no other place in Westfield that they can build this. There could be nothing farther from the truth. There is other ground to build this on. When you're looking at completely violating the existing comprehensive plan, there has to be a critical need. Well, we know that's not the case here. There is not a critical need. Right now, we know there's over 1,000 acres of land that's already zoned business park or industrial along the 31 and 32 corridors. So we know that the petitioner cannot prove a critical need in this rezone ask. The request before you tonight is not one of a critical need, but one of convenience, and convenience for the developer. Just because land's available and the developer has a vested interest in it doesn't mean that it should be rezoned. As a city, we cannot let developers dictate our comprehensive plan. It doesn't make sense. We cannot let the tail wag the dog. Industrial has never, ever been contemplated in this area. Before it's done, you have to look at it holistically. Rezones cannot be done as spot rezones. When you're looking at a complete deviation from the plan, you have got to take a holistic approach to the process. And that there's a way to do that. I'm out of time. In closing, I'd like to say I'm not opposed to growth or development. I'm opposed to forcing a square peg in a round hole. And we need this industrial park to go where it belongs, in an industrial area and not in a rural residential area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Graber.
Mike Graber. I live at 21250 Anthony Road, and if this was developed, I would be staring at it from the back of my property. But I just wanted to say I appreciate the difficulty of this committee, the decisions you guys have to make as you're constantly lobbied with plans from developers to develop every square inch of Westfield. But I ask you as residents of Westfield to listen to what a lot of the other folks have said as far as the sanctity of the comprehensive plan. The developer would lead you to believe that it's really just a suggestion, but as people said, they did their research before they bought their homes, and everyone out there lives there because they wanted to live in the country. How can we as residents make plans and buy property when we look at the plan and say this is supposed to be residential or agricultural, and people can just willy-nilly change things because there's an opportunity for them to make money. It's not your problem, it's not our problem that people are going out and buying land irresponsibly that conflicts with the comprehensive plan or putting options on land. It's not your problem. And so I just ask that you take that into consideration and vote this no. And the other thing that I don't think anyone has mentioned is there's no way you can put in an industrial park this size and have 2 entrances on State Road 38 with semis coming in and out and not put in 2 additional stoplights. So now we'd have 3 stoplights on State Road 38 in a half a mile. That's absolutely insane. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the last card I have right now is Mike Jackson. So then if anyone else would like to speak, please either bring me your card or line up along the wall. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Mike Jackson. I live at 5107 Sheridan Road, so I'll live right across the street from the proposed development. I've lived in Westfield my whole life since 1977, graduated Westfield High School in 91 with like 69 people. So I have watched this place change radically through my life, and I have been really happy with it. People, ask me about that when they find out I've been here forever. And I say, I really like how it's grown. That probably goes back to, I don't know, maybe Jerry Rosenberger or something like that. But this town has really grown very well. But as I think about what's going in across the street, what I'll look at outside my front porch, 45-foot clear, 60-foot clear buildings, they'll be monoliths, they'll be monstrosities. And it makes me sad. And I don't think a fence and some 6-foot-tall trees is really going to take care of that for me. But as I'll go back to the development part of this, as I think about how Westfield's grown, I wonder if anybody's really considered what a cross-dock operation or a 2 million or 3 million square foot distribution center means. It's not going to divert the trucks, they'll just stop off on their way inside of this facility. This is a new destination for hundreds and hundreds of semis. I mean, imagine a cross-dock facility with 100 dock doors on one side and 100 on the other. Their job is to drop off a load, pick up a load, and they want to turn those dock doors multiple times a day. That's hundreds of semis. You could have a few of these in here. And then the people that work in these, that's hundreds of cars, 200 people, 300 people working in a facility like this. So this isn't just like, oh, well, US 31's busy and those trucks are just going to stop off and then keep on their way. This is going to be a draw. This is going to be mostly from the south, going to pull in trucks that will come here to these mixing centers, these distribution centers. So they're not going to look great, but it's radically going to change the feel of 31, 38, and really any road. If 31 gets blocked, all these trucks are going to be on different roads trying to get their loads dropped off and picked up. So, I think as Gordon Food Service, I think that's going to be starting up soon as we see what that's like, a 24/7 operation, 3 shifts, trucks churning. We'll get a sense of it. It'd be good to, if anything else, don't develop anything else till you see what that feels like along East Street and 38. So anyway, I'm concerned about that. This kind of open checkbook of, hey, whatever you want is scary to me. I've been around these kinds of facilities, and they usually end up over by the airport, in these cities. If you fly in and out of airports, you see them all in one spot. There's a reason for that. So I'm pretty astonished that we're even thinking about this in Westfield with this beautiful growth on a beautiful piece of land. And again, I moved there 17 years ago. I was like, oh, that's going to be residential or agricultural. I can do that. That'll be a great place to live and a great place to raise my family. So anyway, I hope there's a pause here. I hope there's just some thought about the impact of this, because I've been around these kinds of office parks, and it's going to have a huge impact on traffic and lifestyle and what it's just going to look like on the land. So anyway, that's my time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Danielle Easterhouse. I live at 21092 Horton Road in the country as well. I'm here actually tonight to speak to you from my elected position with the Westfield, Washington Township Board. There's been a lot of discussion tonight, and it's really sad to me. I have a very sad heart about all of it, and part of that is because in October 2018, we tried to develop this plot of land into a park. through the township, and it was a bond that was going to go through over a series of bonds for about $15 million. And in October, we started that. In December, it was voted that, yes, we would go forward with that bond. And then on January 8th, I was the only vote that said not to rescind the bond. This could have been then something, what I hear everyone talking about tonight. And I know Martin was one of the people who was a big proponent of that and very, very well heard about what that land means to us as a community. The township has really tried to do something with this land, and sadly, we just can't now. I mean, the price back then, and frankly, the petitioners, they came to us and were willing to donate some land for that to be a park. It's just sad that we've gotten to the point where we could have had this park already in place 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It could have already been there, and it's not. The remonstrance started, but ultimately when the bond was rescinded, there's nothing further that we can do. But I just want to speak to you from the township perspective in that we love this green space. We would love it. I don't know how you maintain it and how you keep it. I don't have the answers for that. I like what Martin has to say about thinking through how that can happen. I can tell you from a township perspective on the board that I'm on right now, it won't get voted for the township to take that. But maybe the potential of Hamilton County Parks, I'm not sure. I just want you to hear the heart of the people that tried to do this a number of years ago, and that it got rescinded, sadly, and their voices couldn't be heard. So I appreciate all of your thoughtfulness on this. I have been on your side of the table, so I understand how hard it is to vote on these things. But I always appreciate the fact that there are so many people that took time tonight to come and talk to you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, would anyone else like to speak? And we have been monitoring the email and have received no emails for this during the meeting.
All right. If there's no one else who would like to speak, I'm going to close the public hearing at, looks like 8:27. Mr. Brown, would you like to respond?
In our PowerPoint, we had some slides to just walk through. I'm going to have Chris Wilkes from Holiday Properties give a little bit of information, and then I'll be happy to close.
Thank you, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Chris Wilkes with Holiday Properties with offices at 231 South College Avenue in Indianapolis. When we first began on this project, it was not lost on us that we were adjacent to the residences on Anthony Road, okay? And from day one, we were acutely aware of that. And I would hope by now, with our investments in Westfield and elsewhere, I think we're known as high-quality developers, and we're sensitive. And we want to be good community partners. So, again, we were and are acutely aware of that. And so, Pam, if you can go back to, thank you, Russell. So early on, we've always been talking about how to provide a buffer between the Anthony Road and our park, okay? And initially, we started off with just a sketch of even a 50-foot buffer. We quickly moved to a 100-foot buffer with a 10-foot mound, okay? That was not met favorably. And again, I really understand the sentiment where all these comments are coming from. That's why we have been trying so hard to arrive at the right balance here, where there is not a zero-sum game where somebody wins and someone loses here. I'll get to that in a second. That wasn't met with any positive comments. We then moved to this, where we introduced this concept, where we would bring, again, trying to provide a buffer between Anthony Road and our park. We offered this as a concept at our third neighborhood meeting, which was a single-family development in between the Anthony Road and our park. That was met with resistance. Now, the park was mentioned. You know, we were sensing that maybe in the community there was some reluctance, or reluctance isn't the right word, with regard to the park situation that Daniel mentioned, that maybe there was some regret that perhaps that park didn't happen. So after we exhausted the mounding, the berming, the single family to no avail, we thought, hey, maybe here's an opportunity to provide a second shot at this park. So that's where we established the 10-acre park, okay? There's a story behind that. This isn't just some developer putting lipstick, to use a phrase, right? This was a sincere effort to address what I think is felt in this community as perhaps a regret by some on what happened with that park situation a few years ago. But you can tell we still haven't achieved that right balance. You know, right now I think we're facing where we have 180 acres of, you know, if we'd like to see that, I think everybody would like to see this 180 acres put to use in some way. I don't think anybody wants this 180 acres to sit dormant until the end of time. I don't believe that. But the only development that I could think would be received positively would be something like this. The rural residential section of the plan speaks to 3 acres lots. And by the way, I just remind you, the plan is not just the map. The plan is a document that contains both the map and the text that Russell had highlighted. People don't want to, they keep saying that this site has been zoned rural residential. They ignore the text. They ignore the text that says along highway corridors, residential should not be permitted. Earlier, there was a conversation about multifamily along corridors. Why do you not see high-quality residential, be it rental or ownership, right along highway corridors? Maybe because it's a highway corridor. But, so here's 46 lots. That would be the easy thing to do, to walk in tonight with that plan. You know, the hard part about it is when you get to the market data with regard to residential real estate in Hamilton County. In early 2021, Baggy, the Builders Association of Greater Indianapolis, put on a presentation about residential real estate development in Westfield and Hamilton County. I've included some data from that presentation. What was striking here was that Hamilton County, this was early 21, from 2019 and 2020, 2 years, parcel sizes of 1.5 to 3 acres, 249 sales in Hamilton County, 29 in Westfield. I just showed you a plan that showed 46 lots. Washington Township, Mybor, parcel size, that's in what, those 29 were in Westfield proper. In Washington Township, parcel sizes of 1.5 to 3 acres. 2 years, two sales reported. I just showed you a plan that showed 46 lots. Another thing that was in that presentation about large lots. A few area projects with large lots were presented. This is from that same presentation from Baggy. They listed one was Lost Farms of Zionsville, developed in 2004, 21 lots. In 2021, there were 7 still available. 14 lots sold in 17 years. Pleasant View Estates, Zionsville, developed 2003, 18 lots, 2 acres. 2021, there were still 4 available. Again, 14 lots sold in 18 years. You can kind of get the trend. 1 lot, maybe every little over a year. So it brings you the question, is that 46-acre lot plan that I showed you, how long do you think as a city it would take for that 46 acres to be developed based on the trends here? 46 acres, 46 lots, we were suggesting maybe 46 to 50 years. So maybe this is a time to bring in some other economic data. Oh, this is another thing from that Baggy. 90% of all residential lot sales in the United States, by the way, are less than 0.51 acres, according to this stat. Economic data. We're very proud of what we've been able to do in North Point in just the last 3 or 4 years. Here's a list of some of our projects. Bastion Phase 1. It has a Phase 2 slated to be attached, but in just the last 3 or 4 years, we have 4 projects that are completed, 1 under construction, over 53 acres. $66 million of capital investment, over 53 acres. Now we're talking 180 acres. So really, some of the question probably suggests, what we're going to discuss in this process is perhaps at some point in time, the economic data should enter into this decision on what to do with this 180 acres. This doesn't even mention the Gordon Food Service that was, it's not started here, but that would add another 80 acres, another 160 million. So just based on some, if you take the 53 acres and the 66 million, and then you just project that over the 100, say we're 180 acres gross. If you said net, there's 150. Those 53 acres, those are net actual parcels for those projects, okay? You could see it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to get to an assessed value of $200 million. So at a 3% rate, you're talking $6 million a year. Now, go back to the 46 lots. Generously, you put $1 million of assessed value on that lot, each lot. Well, at a 1% rate, 50 lots, $5 million of assessed value, or $50 million, 500,000. Now, we understand that it's not all about the numbers. I understand listening here. This is, especially when you're talking about your homes, we understand. It's not just about the numbers. We want to strike the right balance for this 180 acres that could be yielding and beneficial to the city as a whole and at large, while also acknowledging acutely that we are next to residents on Anthony Road. I want to strike that balance, and we are hopeful that this process, through this process, perhaps a balance can be struck. Obviously we haven't done that now. We've tried. As a developer and a development team, I can only tell you we will remain committed during this process. We will come with open minds, eyes, and ears to everybody, this commission, everybody, to try to achieve that right balance. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
Mr. Wilkes kind of said what I was going to say, which is, to Mr. Wheeler's comments, that the intent of the prolonged nature of this was not hide the ball. The intent of this was to try to find, if possible, an opportunity that addressed neighborhood concerns while still providing a viable project. And that's been the intent. Many of you, I've stood in front of you for many times and many years, and my reputation is all I have when I'm standing here. That's the goal that we work for. That's Chris's reputation, that's Holiday's reputation. We understand there may not be ultimately a positive outcome, there may not be a positive recommendation. This may not be the project that happens here, but from the development team, I would hope you would understand that's not from a lack of trying, from lack of trying to find opportunities. And there are emotions, and there are lots of emotions, and they're understandable emotions. So we've tried to provide both the legal case and the business case about why we think this is the right location, why we think the deviation from the rural residential as shown on the map is not the be-all, end-all of your consideration. So with that, happy to answer questions, but otherwise, looking
Thank you.
forward to working with you.
I will start at the other end of the table with Mr. Johns.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank Chris Wilkes, Holiday Properties, for their conscious efforts to try to make this a project that would be acceptable to the citizens of Westfield, to the area. You've done a number of wonderful projects across Indiana that have been outstanding. In this particular case, I'm sitting here with kind of wearing two hats. I've spent 20 years in trucking and warehousing, and I spent the last 20 years in real estate and development. So I think I've got a fairly unique sense of what's happening. First of all, I'm a little concerned with referring to the comprehensive plan as a guide. Certainly it is a guide, but I think, some folks tend to say if we're trying to suggest we want to move away from it, it's only just a guide. But I think it's more than a guide. I think a lot of people spend a lot of time. As a matter of fact, roughly 300 people put time and effort into developing that comprehensive plan over a 2-year period, and they definitely identified the rural Northeast as being rural. I do believe that if we put an industrial park into that area, that it will diminish the quality of life to the surrounding neighbors. I believe that it will increase truck traffic tremendously on Route 38. Again, my experience in warehousing and trucking. I think it will increase noise, pollution, light pollution, and from my real estate background, I believe that it will decrease the surrounding property values. I think there's a question about the effect to the water quality, to the aquifer, and to the ecology of the area. And I think that there is also, as pointed out, that Indiana DNR deems that Hamilton County is in need of more green space. I was interested that one of the residents in the wealth of emails that I've received indicated that he believed, or a group of you believe, that there's 1,950 acres of land in the city which have been zoned for commercial industrial business and uses. I don't know that. I will share with you that when I was elected to the city council 2 years ago, one of the first things that I did during my first month in office was to meet with the mayor, because I was concerned with commercial creep into our city. And I asked the mayor if he could help by providing us with a map of where all the industrial spaces were located in the city. And secondly, if he could also indicate what percentage of those areas had been developed. So where's our commercial property located on a map? What percentage of that has been built out to date? And to this date, I have not been provided with that information. Cindy Spoljeric, who's not here this evening, she has also requested that with me. Together we did, and we have yet to receive that. So at this point, it's very difficult for me to look positively at adding a new industrial park, albeit it would be with a developer who I believe would do a wonderful job in developing it, but I just don't have the information that I've requested as to, do we need one at this time? So I guess those are my comments for this evening. Thank you.
First, thank you. I want to thank first those who participated tonight, who gave up their time to be here, and those who have emailed. I know I read all the emails, and I'm sure everyone up here did as well. We do appreciate that input. Also appreciate those who, when they bought their properties, they did exactly what we want them to do, and that is investigate the planning documents, see how it pertains to how they will use the property and whether it's a good fit with the properties that they buy. That's what we want. That leads to less frustration in the future when people know what they're getting into. And so for that, to me, the comp plan does weigh fairly heavily on this plan, maybe more so than most, because although what Mr. Brown mentioned, this property is on a highway corridor, the comp plan itself did not show a corridor, whereas it does on 31 and 32. I don't understand really why. It makes sense to me with the being on a state highway and being in close proximity to a U.S. highway, it would seem appropriate, but it didn't. So perhaps those who participated in the process might know some of the thinking behind that. It makes sense what was presented to us, that perhaps the comp plan gives some time in the future to reconsider if circumstances change. That all seems reasonable. However, it is what it is right now, and the plan hasn't been revised. So I can certainly understand those who have relied upon that to make significant investments in their properties. The plan itself, echoing what Mike says, I know this developer is an excellent developer, and I certainly like where this plan, the direction it has gone, from the initial iteration and the second. This is the first one that, well, I like this one far better than the others in that it addresses and attempts to buffer somewhat to the uses to the west. But again, I would agree with Mr. Wilkes that probably it hasn't achieved the right balance just yet. And it will be a tough balance to achieve because, many times when we're looking at these comp plan issues, we're debating a suburban residential next to a rural residential. Well, this is a more stark contrast. You've got more intense uses immediately adjacent to each other. So I would want to see, for a plan like this to go forward, I would want to see some very significant buffering, some very clear assurances regarding the other issues that affect quality of life, lighting, pollution, noise, trucking, traffic, all those sorts of things. I'm not sure we're there yet. So I guess that's my thought. There's just a lot of stuff thrown at us right now and that we'll consider going forward.
Matt Deck.
First of all, I'd like to thank James, Christy, Brad, Martin, Janet, Adam, Kathy, Jill, Joe, Tim, Justin, Wayne, Mike, and Danielle. Thank you for taking the time to come out and politely and respectfully make your comments known. And I know it's not easy to get up and speak in front of a group, and really appreciate you sharing your feedback. Justin, congrats on your adoption. That's awesome. Brad and Mike, thank you for your understanding of the difficult position that we're in. Really appreciate that, because it's difficult. And ultimately, the position that we're in is to make a recommendation and not make the ultimate final decision. We're to make a recommendation to the city council. And it'll be up to the city council as to whether this moves forward or not, based on whether we make a favorable or don't make a favorable recommendation. Still, it's difficult. I wanted to read really quick paragraph from the most current remonstrance, and then follow up with an additional paragraph that was not in the remonstrance. In the remonstrance, it does state the policy of this plan. This is with regards to the comp plan. The policy of this plan is that these areas will be designated as rural for the foreseeable future. In particular, the development for these areas as anything other than rural or agricultural uses in the near future would violate the contiguity policy set out in the general policies. Now, the very next paragraph, which was not in the remonstrance, that is in the comp plan, does state, however, when this plan is updated in 5 years, which it was not, this policy will be reevaluated in light of any potential changes in market conditions, public service and facility changes, local government fiscal conditions, and community attitudes and values. And I'm concerned in a way in seeing the trend with regards to the agendas that have been set forth in front of the APC and the City Council with the number of commercial opportunities that we've been seeing. And I think it's absolutely critical that as a commission, as a council, that we very carefully consider the balance between our residential and our commercial property taxes. Sorry, I have 4 pages of notes. I normally don't speak this much. I also have to indicate that if I were in the same position as the members of the NRR, I would most likely agree with you, and I would be speaking tonight as well in opposition to this project. I can understand not wanting to have the rural environment that you have disrupted by what is being proposed. But at the same time, we have to do what's best for the citizens of Westfield. And I know 31, 32, and 38 are our developmental commercial corridors. I know there were 600 of you that signed in opposition to that, yet we have to do what's best for the 45,000 residents and the city of Westfield itself. I really have to ask, and I don't know the details, and this is rhetorical, but why not that park in 2018? Why was there a remonstrance against a park which I believe would have given each one of you what you were looking for with regards to a neighboring development? So obviously, if you remonstrated the park in 2018, you're certainly not going to be agreeable to almost anything that this developer wants to do. I just think as a commission, we need to take a very hard look at this. We have to understand the economic data that was presented. I don't know that I necessarily agree with the years that Mr. Wilkes presented, but $6 million in property taxes as opposed to what could be $500,000, that's a stark contrast. It's a pretty big difference. So I would just ask that we consider all of that with regards to the recommendation that we set forth.
Mr. Horkay, are you there?
I am still here. Thank you very much. The demonstrators all raised great points, and as others have said, it is a very sensitive issue, and I can see their points, but we also do have language that is intended to treat corridors differently because residential is precluded there. And I don't remember enough about the failed attempt to grab this area for parkland. It's been a lot of time, and I've slept too many times since then. And rather than rehashing all of that, I just have a few general questions about the proposal that can be responded to as I raise them or take notes and figure it out later. But I'm concerned about the amount of acreage with 2 cul-de-sac lots and how that would actually develop in that the minimum lot area is as small as 3 acres. That could be 30 to 40 lots that are not all going to be able to have access from those 2 interior roads that end in cul-de-sacs. The side and rear yard setbacks are as small as 10 feet. the park-like, campus-like setting that I believe we've all been kind of envisioning would certainly require more than that. In looking at the current North Point lots that are divided and including the economic data that's on the screen right now, smallest lot there is 6 acres. Most of them are in double digits and then some. So I'm wondering, is this really the standards that ought to be here? And in regards to the area that is set aside as park, the stated desire was for somebody to take responsibility for it and develop it. What if whomever that might be doesn't come along? Is Holiday Properties prepared to do something to create some sort of a very nice green usable space in whatever manner for the citizens of Westfield and Washington Township and our visitors in that area, and to better buffer the folks on Anthony Road? It can't just be left as the tilled ground that it is currently. And the buildings that are represented are fairly large, and I'm wondering how many of those would be as small as 65,000 square feet. And are there sightline studies that have been prepared but we didn't see, or that could be prepared, that will more clearly and definitively demonstrate just what is going to be the vision to these buildings at build out with the amenities or the buffering that is proposed? There is also a 100-foot setback around the perimeter. Is that something that can't be violated, such that if this is approved and it becomes wildly successful, there's no way that it could expand to the north, which would certainly be a very unpopular thing, more so than it is right now? Are we looking at the total extent that could possibly occur here? And is there some sort of a commitment that might give us a comfort level regarding that? And I'll stop for the time being at least.
I think rather than waiting until everybody has spoken, you might want to comment now.
Absolutely. I'll see if I got all of Mr. Jorge's questions down right. I'll start with the northern expansion. One of the topics that I did not, because of time constraints, trying to cover a lot of materials, the ordinance provides that there would be a 30-foot dedicated easement along the northern boundary of the project, actually around the perimeter of the project. And the intention of that, a couple things. One is it would provide for pedestrian connectivity between the proposed park on the western boundary and Bray Homestead Park. So it would be improved with a walkway. And the second would be to have a dedicated easement so that there could not be, without significant public process or vacating, those types of things, there could not be expansion to the north. So we were very purposeful in trying to come up with something that was more of a just trust us, we're not going further north. And the dedicated easement with an improved walkway was that concept. So that's where our attempts to find a hard line for future expansion was there. As it relates to setbacks, the question about internal, so I think there are two differences. One was we had a 100-foot building setback from exteriors of the development. The attempt there was to create, especially as it related to the exterior views, to create more setback and more of buffering. So those would be internal setbacks not contemplated, but we can certainly look at those. Mr. Jorge is correct. In current North Point, those are all larger parcels. The North Point ordinance has a minimum lot size of 1 acre, just for reference. So when we came to this development, and that was one of the first neighborhood questions, was exactly that point. You have 180 acres, minimum size of 1 acre. Well, gosh, that's a lot of development occurring there, a number of buildings. So we moved it to 3. I don't know that there was any science to that other than trying to figure out what might be the smallest potential development you would look for. But we can certainly look back. The intent would be, the concept would be, I think, and anticipation would be, you would have larger lots, not smaller of them. As it relates to the number of the two cul-de-sacs, I think the intention there was to show more of the access onto State Road 38 and the proposed locations of them. One of the contemplations as it relates to the design standards in the comp plan for business parks is to minimize the number of access points into the park. And so trying to be purposeful about those locations, and obviously as lots develop and as projects develop, you would have a more defined roadway network that probably would be more than two small cul-de-sacs coming off of that, but there would be two access points, and that was more of the intention there. As it relates to sightline studies, under the current proposal, no, we have not done any sightline studies. We did do that under a previous iteration. I think it was under version 2. We had some sightline studies that were done with the maximum building height with mounding. We've not done those for version 4. So that's certainly a request that we can work through as it relates to what design standards exist with setbacks, how it would look from various vantage points. So that's something we can work through as we move through the process. The park question about what happens if it's not, we can't find somebody to accept it. To staff's credit, they asked that same question in their comments earlier this week. So we'll work to figure out what an answer to that question is. We've not thought through that eventuality. I think we're hopeful that there would be a public entity to take ownership of it, but we'll work through that question because that's a very fair and reasonable question. And the what ifs are what kills projects sometimes. So we'll work through that question. Mr. Horke, I think I got all of your.
Yeah, that satisfies me for now. I'll yield to others and jump back in if something else comes to mind that I feel needs to be discussed this evening.
Thank you. Victor McCarty.
First, I want to say that earlier when I was laughing that, and this kind of, I love sitting next to Jenny because I'm able to help her with technology, but she writes in cursive, and she wrote something in cursive, and I'm not really able to read that. So, that's why I was laughing earlier. But anyway, so I mean, I pretty much agree with everything that's been said, both from my fellow commissioners as well as everyone out here in the audience tonight. It was said that this was first proposed in August 2020, and it was causing anxiety then, and to be honest, that was my first year here on the Planning Commission, and it was causing me anxiety. It's caused me anxiety ever since of, putting myself in your shoes, absolutely I would not want this. And to your credit, gentleman in the back, sorry I can't remember your name, but, and I just kind of feel like I say this every time, but like you, I've lived in Westfield my entire life. And it's just a very, very difficult scenario for me. Because I feel like I've built my reputation on I am absolutely pro-business, but I am also absolutely pro being a good neighbor. So just reading through my chicken scratch here, to the point, if not this, then what is going to happen here? Because I don't believe that this sitting dormant is realistic. I just don't, after my experience again here on Planning Commission and seeing everything that's happened over my past almost 29 years of life here in Westfield. I would love to see continued green space, but I absolutely dread and would hate to see this eventually become a high-density housing development, because that is what I constantly hear from neighbors, whomever, saying, we don't want more houses, and that's absolutely correct. I think with everything that we have approved in Westfield for the past several years, we have enough to build out to, possibly close to 70,000 or something. So I definitely don't want to see this here. We have enough strain on our schools, so on and so forth. One thing is I would like to see designated business areas that have already been designated to be filled up before we start sprawling out. So again, when we talk about, going north of 38 or just wherever it is that's outside of what's already been developed inside of Westfield, I would like to see the infill filled in before we start to consider other areas. Again, that's what makes this so difficult. But overall, I do believe that we need updates throughout our comprehensive plan. The Westfield that was then, when the comprehensive plan was approved, is vastly different to the Westfield that we have now. Vastly different. Even 5 years ago, we're vastly different. I mean, it is absolutely crazy. And to Mr. Deck's point, the comprehensive plan was supposed to be updated 5 years after it was approved, and it wasn't. So what do we as a community want to see? Not just with our sprawling out, but with our infill. There are many questions that are being left unanswered right now. But overall, kind of playing devil's advocate here, is that I like this plan much better than every iteration that you've come through so far with, as well as I like this better than the original North Point. Because again, going back to my point of not wanting residential, this purely focuses on, one, allowing park space, and two, allowing commercial space. So I'm just, very, very back and forth on this. But one quote that was said, and again, I apologize, I didn't write down your name, but my favorite quote tonight has been that a plan is to drive development, not development driving the plan. So I'll just leave you with that. Thank you.
Kristen Bergman?
Okay, thank you. I want to start off, like a lot of my fellow commissioners, just thanking the public tonight for coming in and sharing your time. I believe we got 120 letters on the public comment, which is the most that I've had since I've been on the Plan Commission. So obviously this is a very passionate topic, and it's impacting our community in a big way. I also want to thank the petitioners, because they are doing wonderful work in our community in their commercial developments, and we do need commercial development. But I guess where I want to start my theme off tonight is that we need to have the right uses in the right places. And we've talked a lot tonight about the comprehensive plan, but I want to talk about a couple areas we haven't talked about. One is, in our comprehensive plan, we talk about two very special areas in our city as far as topography. One is the southwest, that's where I live, and the other is the northeast. These are very special areas where the land looks different. We have a lot of trees, we have a lot of rolling hills, we have creeks in both of these areas. The other thing I want to talk about that the comprehensive plan says is that in Westfield, we offer a place for everyone and every lifestyle. And I think that when we think about our neighbors around us, if we go to the south or to the east and farther east, they're building out very quickly. And I don't think that they have the unique opportunities for their citizens like we still have for ours, to have hobby farms and to have horses and to have those types of lifestyles that the people of Westfield treasure. This particular area is one of those areas that we have earmarked in our comprehensive plan for those type of lifestyles. My concern is that with a commercial development such as this one, with the uses, this will heavily impact all of these people's lifestyle. I know you've talked about your property values, but the noise coming from a 24-hour-a-day operation will be crippling to all of you, and I understand that. I think that there could be some solutions on uses that could be lower impact on this parcel, like 9 to 5 with lighting that does not affect your night sky. And so I would say we need to have some creativity here. But having a distribution center with 24-hour-a-day trucks going in and out, I can't support that in this area for these people. The other thing that I just wanted to mention as we start to think about creatively what could happen on this parcel, because as people have said, obviously the owners of this land, and there are other large parcels by this parcel. And so whatever we do impacts those landowners as well. There is some creative solutions that I think that you might want to explore. One is I've seen conservation subdivisions, which I know you just showed a chart about large acre lots and that type of thing, but conservation subdivisions group houses closer together with open space around them. This could be a lower impact way to buffer these residents, and then perhaps have more of a smaller retail node or a 9-to-5 office park that doesn't abut these neighbors. So there's transitions and buffers in this area. Anything that gets done though, they need to not have their property values lowered. They need to not have their lifestyle impacted. And so I think creativity is the name of the game for this particular parcel. And that we honor our residents. Thank you.
Andre Maui?
So the thing about going last or close to last is that I had a lot of great things I thought were important to say, and they've mostly been said already. I agree with most of what you've just heard, except the part about cursive. This is a pretty strong remonstrance, and I'd say it was delivered very thoughtfully, and I appreciate the way everybody approached with such respect. And there are a lot of very well-spoken people in NRR, so that's great, and I'm glad that everybody came out. I especially empathize with everybody who did their homework. It's so frustrating sometimes when we hear that somebody did a little bit of homework, but they went there anyway thinking it wasn't really going to happen. And then when it does happen, they're upset about it. And we heard so much tonight about people who did their homework. And what that leads us to then, it's a matter of interpretation. And that's the challenge here. And I have been generally of the mindset that the comp plan is a little bit of a blurry guide. It has to be because it changes with context. But I also understand that's the only homework that you can really do for the most part. I mean, that's what you have to go by. I get that. And though I think the lines can blur and we shouldn't look at that as an actual map that's got fence lines on it, I do think that this is pushing it a little bit far. Now, having said that, I was really glad to hear Mr. Wilkes talk about balance, because that's what I was feeling as I was listening, is we got to figure out the balance here. And so, Kristen, especially with talking about transition, not just now mentioning some other uses, I was trying to figure out what needs to go there. I don't know how to do the market studies that you do as developers, but it does feel like we need to figure out those transitions to make this mutually beneficial. I see you nodding, and I see everybody else kind of listening intently to this as well. What we're seeing tonight isn't there yet. That's not the balance. That's pushing too far. If we could go back to 2018, fire up the DeLorean, maybe end up with a park out of this. But in the absence of that, we just need to find something that transitions better. So thanks for your continued efforts on that. I would like to see this more expediently come to a close after all the stress I know for everybody, but we're not there yet, so I think it's going to take a little bit more work.
Kristen?
Sorry, there's just one more thing I want to add, because as you go from 31 east to this parcel, right now we have all either a park or single-family homes. So that is the precedent along the road. But I do think those have been there a long time before 38 was as busy as well. So I do think that there's just some creativity needed again. But there's just not right now a precedent for anything on that side of the road. It is all single family. I know in your presentation you were talking a little bit about there's some commercial over here and over there, but on that north side, it is all single family from 31 to this parcel. So, thank you.
My turn. I agree with what everyone else has said, especially Kristen. I've been involved in 3 comprehensive plans, and people move here, I was one of them, based on looking at the comprehensive plan. I came to meetings before I moved here to listen what was being said, and that's a big thing to me. And, you know, shame on us for not upgrading it, and doing some things maybe that we should have. Who has been yawning back there? But I guess one of my issues is this, there was supposed to be a hard stop at 38 when we did the comprehensive plan. And the reason we didn't address 38 was because it was so far out there. We had 31, 32, 146th Street, and we wanted those to develop first. They were the ones that were the highest profile on 31. They were the ones that were already had lots of development around and near them. So those are the ones that we wanted to go first. We didn't really think of 38 as developing anywhere in the near future. The other thing for me, when I'm looking at something that may be modifying the comprehensive plan, I'd like to know where we are. And I don't know, your packet that you sent out with all of these sites, I need to look at again. I remember that. Do we have that many industrial sites or zoned land available? Is it an appropriate type of site for large lot like Bastion and things like that? Because they're different types of developments. There are Alpha Tau, which is smaller lots. There is the North Point, the existing one, which appears to be much larger lots. Where do we want those? Where do we have them? Where do we have places to infill? One of the letters that came to us was from someone who has a business in the Alpha Tau Park and saying, why are we developing new ones when theirs aren't full yet? And I have a feel for those people because I agree. At some point, you need to reach out and do new ones, but at some point, you also need to try to infill. And that was one of the things that the mayor asked us to look at, infill and doing that. I think Kristen's idea on if there is going to be a change up here, conservation subdivision maybe as a surrounding, I don't know, but it's not something that's where I would be positive on it right now. Lots of other things that I have notes on, I'll try to get to you, but I think we need to honor the people that moved here and looked at our comprehensive plan. And if we think there may be some changes that need to be made on our commercial and industrial zoning, it needs to be a township-wide look, not just, hey, let's do this. It needs to be township-wide to see what we've got, what's available, what we might need. One of the other things that somebody commented on was, is there a driving need for this? And I don't know that. I don't know what we've got and whether this is really, obviously it's going to provide revenue and a higher AV, but is there a driving need for this? Because it isn't all about the money. It's also about quality of life and the people who live here. One comment, just briefly, on looking at the ordinance itself. Besides being enclosed industrial, it also includes general business. And I haven't delved into it enough to see how much of it is general business, but it looks like there could be a significant portion. So I'll leave it at that. Is anybody else, Plan Commission member, would like to make any other comments or questions? Okay. Mr. Brown, anybody like to respond or?
No, I feel redundant, but I will say I've been practicing for 15 years now. I have done a number of friendly neighborhood meetings and not always friendly. I appreciate the neighbors here. They have been respectful through 4 meetings tonight. They've been respectful at all times, and I appreciate their involvement. I think our goal is to take what you've said tonight to try to come back and find, is there a middle ground? Is there some creativity that still leaves a viable project? And that's the marching order I hear from you, to try to go to see. I will tell the neighbors that's not going to happen in 2 weeks. It probably is not happening in 4 weeks. I can tell you in 4 weeks I'll be on my honeymoon, so I will not be here in 4 weeks. Thank you. So I will not be here in 4 weeks, but I think we will be working, and we will communicate through Pam, and I think Ms. Wheeler has been one of the primary contacts, and I'm happy to communicate that way so that we can be proactive in the communication instead of them having to feel reactive. And I would hope that they would trust that we're going to continue to try to do that. We may come to stand here and be in disagreement when we're done, but we'll work to try to find those opportunities and communicate as well as we can. I'll make sure that they do have my contact, but I'll make sure that they have it again, and happy to try to find that middle ground and bring something back that we hope will gain your favorable recommendation.
Thank you. I have two other comments. One, I wanted to support Kristen's comment about the comprehensive plan providing a place for everybody and different lifestyles. And we certainly do provide a lot of high-density housing and apartments and townhomes and things like that. It's much more difficult to provide larger lot subdivisions or mini farms or some acreage, which is what so many people are now looking for. So that they are an important part of our population and an important part of that makeup of those different types of lifestyles that we want to include. And the other thing is, having not seen all the data that Mr. Wilkes presented with number of lots sold, and it's hard to judge something when you pull data out of something and take it by itself. When you give me the numbers of homes that are sold over a certain acreage, and how much smaller that is than the homes that are on smaller acreage, I don't know what that means, because obviously there are less homes on large acreage, so they're going to be less sold. And there are a lot more homes on smaller acreage, so they're going to be a lot more sold. I was interested in the data that you showed on some of the subdivisions that have had lots sit there for a while. I suspect that may have changed, because I can tell you that so many people are moving out of the city and want some acreage right now. I think COVID drove them out. But we get calls a couple times a week asking if we'd sell a few acres. So I take that information a bit with a grain of salt. So I will shut up. Kristen, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to give some more recent data that we've had 2 homes near us, one on 3 acres, one on 5 acres. That one was on the market one day and one was on the market for a week. So I do think this community supports that type of development.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Pam, Kevin, any comments on any of the items continued to a future meeting?
Before we comment on that, we just want to get into future timeline for this, and mainly as it relates to comments. I know normally we would tell you by end of day Wednesday to get your public comments, any additional Plan Commission member comments into us so we can compile the issue list. Given that it's a short week, we're going to go till the end of the weekend. So if you have any additional comments you want to provide, please send them to me prior to Monday morning, and then we will work to get the issue list compiled and sent to the petitioner next week.
Okay, thank you. Reports and comments, Plan Commission members? Sure. Well, it's next on the list, so you can do the downtown update.
So we have a lot of citizens in here tonight, so let me give a little background. We are actually working right now on some streetscape items in our downtown. And so in our comprehensive plan, there had been some implementation items that needed to be addressed, which include the landscaping and the street lighting and benches and potential parkette areas in our downtown. And so we have a cross-functional team made up of about 12 to 14 people that are working together to define these elements. And so the update for the APC tonight is that we have contracted with 2 firms. One is Rundle and the other is MKSK. And we are in progress with both firms. And they will be giving us design concepts. We are starting with State Road 32. Many of you may know that that is going to be widened starting in 2023. And so we are actually starting with State Road 32 with these 2 design firms, and they are sketching out what the trees could look like and where benches would go, and also how we're going to keep everybody safe along that corridor as well. So it's an exciting, exciting project, and kind of keep looking on the website and the current and some different the council meetings, and we'll be giving some updates, but the design concepts from these firms are supposed to be in by the end of March. So be on the lookout.
Thank you, Kristen. City Council Liaison, Mike, I think you're on deck.
I guess I'm on deck tonight. Yeah, we had a city council meeting on Valentine's Day, and it was a lengthy meeting. We discussed and had a presentation from the YMCA, and they are coming to the city to request additional assistance toward funding the YMCA, and ask that we consider using some of the ARPA funds that we're receiving from the federal government to help fund that, the YMCA. So that is one of a number of different groups that has come before us. We're also looking at using those funds for some infrastructure improvements. So that's an ongoing conversation, and we expect that we'll be discussing that again on the 28th. We're open to comments until the 28th, so if you have any comments with respect to YMCA funding, please send those in, and you can send those to Cindy Spoljarek on the ARPA committee. We also had a report from the clerk treasurer's office. There was a forensic audit that was done onto some of the IT issues. That is an ongoing dialogue that's happening now, and we're hoping that her forensic auditor and the city's IT department will be working together to share information and resolve those issues. Under old business, the city council approved the Springwater PUD, which the APC had approved the week before, a vote of 7-0 on that. And then under new business, we had the Union Square Garage issue was voted and approved by the city council, resolution 22-102. City council approved a bond issue of $12.25 million to fund a city garage within the Old Town Union Square project. Next step of that is to go before the RDC for more approval for the funding, and hopefully we'll be breaking ground on that project yet this spring. In addition to that, we had a number of different issues or ordinances introduced that'll be coming before this body within the next several weeks. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Dave, BZA?
Yeah, BZA met on the 15th and had the swimming pool business continues to prosper in Westfield. We had 3 pool location variances, 2 in Spring Mill Park, 1 in Village Farms. Those were each approved. And the final matter was approval of a use variance to permit a pet-oriented business, a high-intensity retail business, basically a doggy daycare, boarding, and grooming facility on South Park Drive, just south of 169th Street, just north of Round Tripper. And that was approved and had support from all of the neighboring businesses surrounding it. And that was it.
Thank you. Kevin, Community Development.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, we introduced our newest planner at that time, who's here tonight, Ryan Collingwood. And since that time, we've added another new associate planner, who is still here tonight, Wes Rogers. I couldn't see you, sorry. So you'll be hearing from them more as they get acclimated to our processes and procedures, so.
Great, that's 3, right? Welcome, yeah.
Two new planners and a new building inspector this year.
Great.
So, yep,
All right, thank you.
thanks.
Unless there are no other comments, motion to adjourn.
Just one more, well,
Okay.
2 more comments, just so I stay consistent. First of all, I love seeing everyone in the audience. I mean, time and time again, I preach having more community involvement, and this is exactly what I'd like to see. So just kudos to everyone out in the audience tonight. Thank you so much for showing up and having your voices heard. It's very much so appreciated. And then 2, just so I stay consistent, in regards to the primary plat that we approved tonight, it's nothing that we can do about it because it's an improved development from years ago, but it's just my continued disappointment to see land across from a 2 million visitor park every year to have residential. I know I say it, I sound like a broken record, I say it in multiple meetings, but I just challenge developers here in Westfield to please have better use of the land. We have youth sports that are coming in, especially with warmer months coming up, that, families are looking for something to do. We need some entertainment here in Westfield. And I say this as someone who's lived on 186th Street my entire life. We need more to be able to serve our visitors here in Westfield, and having residences across from, the PAC is not gonna do it. So that's just my call to developers. Thank you.
Thank you. Unless there's anyone else who'd like to make a comment, could I have a motion to adjourn? I have a
Second.
motion from Dave Schmitz and Andre Maury, second. Can we take a voice vote?
I think we have to do roll
We have to
call
do
since
the-
we have a
okay,
virtual
go ahead.
attendee. Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Berkman?
Yes.
Mr. Deck?
Yes.
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Still there, Bob?